Uchechi and Kelechukwu love story began in the most unassuming way. They were neighbors in a lively neighborhood in Enugu, where everyone knew everyone. They attended the same secondary school, and it did not take long for people to notice how inseparable they were. It started with small gestures, sharing snacks during lunch breaks, walking home together after school, and whispering inside jokes during long church services. Their connection was pure and effortless, the kind of bond that even their classmates could not help but admire. And soon enough, they earned a nickname that stunk. People called them the King and Queen of Love. It was what their peers called them, partly out of admiration and partly out of envy. Those two will definitely break up after WAEC, one boy said during a lunch break. "No, I don't think so," a girl replied. "Have you seen the way Kene looks at her? They will surely get married one day." And that prediction wasn't far-fetched. Despite the skepticism and teasing from classmates, Uchechi and Kene stayed true to each other. After secondary school, while most of their peers drifted apart, their bond only grew stronger. They made a pact to support each other no matter what life threw at them. The two lovers chose to attend the University of Nigeria Nsukka, carefully selecting courses that kept them close. Uchechi pursued microbiology while Kene went for business administration. Despite their different fields of study, they found ways to spend time together, even if it was just meeting at the library or catching a quick meal between classes. At church, they were just as inseparable. They sang together in the youth choir, captivating the entire congregation. Their love inspired people of all ages, and it wasn't long before their parents, who had always been cordial neighbors, became close friends. It was common for Uchechi's mother to send over a pot of soup for Kene's father, or for Kene's father to feast something around Uchechi's house. The two families became intertwined, looking out for one another in ways that solidified their bond. When it was time for NYSC, Uchechi and Kene pulled strings to ensure they were posted to the same state. Luck was on their side when they both received posting to Delta State. At the camp, they stood out once again, with fellow corps members admiring how much they supported and loved each other. By the time they completed their service year, marriage seemed like the natural next step. Both families were overjoyed, eager to unite officially what had always felt like one family. Uchechi's father started planning the wine carrying ceremony, while Kene's mother began compiling a guest list for the traditional wedding. But in the midst of all this excitement, Uchechi and Kene had a sobering realization. They have never checked their genotypes. When the priest at the premarital counseling session brought it up, they laughed nervously, brushing it off as something they would handle quickly. "We are fine, father," Kenneth said with a confident smile. "We have always been healthy, so there's nothing to worry about." But when they got their results, the world they had built together came crashing down. They were both AS. That evening, both families sat down in Uchechi's living room, trying to process the news. The one jubilant atmosphere was replaced with silence and mixed feelings. Uchechi's mother was the first to speak. "How could you two be so careless?" she asked, her voice trembling with a mixture of frustration and worry. Kenneth's father nodded in agreement. "You have been together for years. Did it never occur to you to check this?" Uchechi lowered her gaze, her fingers gripping the edge of her dress. "We did not think about it," she admitted softly. "We are just so caught up in everything." Her words hung in the air, heavy with regret. Their parents exchanged glances, their disappointment evident. "This is not just about you two anymore," Kenneth's mother said. "This is about the future. Do you know what it means to have children with sickle cell?" But Uchechi and Kene did not have answer, and for the first time in years, their love felt like it was not enough. Still, they were not ready to give up. "We are going to figure this out," Kene said, taking Uchechi's hand in his. "We always do." And so their parents were not convinced, but they did not want to push them just yet. "You both need to think carefully about this," Uchechi's father said. "Love is important, but it's not everything. The consequences of this decision will affect generation." As the family left the room, Uchechi and Kene sat in silence, their hands still clasped, and for the first time, they faced a decision that will either bind them forever or tear them apart. For weeks after the shocking genotype revelation, Uchechi and Kenechukwu were inconsolable. They avoided each other at first, hoping time apart would help them make sense of everything. But it only made things worse. Nights were filled with tears and long conversation with God, asking why they had to face such a cruel twist of fate. They starved themselves, not because there was no food, but because their hearts could not bear the thought of losing one another. Uchechi spent days in her room, staring at old pictures of her and Kene. Every memory felt like a dagger to her chest. Every laugh, every hug, every whispered promise hurt her. Meanwhile, Kene would sit on the steps outside her house, hoping she would come out, even if it's just to yell at him. Life without her felt unimaginable. After weeks of this emotional torture, Kene sent her a message late one night saying, "Meet me by the mango tree tomorrow morning." The mango tree was a special spot when they had first declared their love for each other back in secondary school. It was where they went to talk about everything, the good, the bad, and the uncertain. When Uchechi arrived the next day, her face was swollen from crying, but she looked at Kene with the same love she had always had. "I can't do this without you," Kene began, his voice breaking. "I've tried to think of life without you, but it doesn't just make sense. It's like the air in my lungs disappears." Uchechi wiped her tears, her voice shaking. "I feel the same, Kene, but what about the risk? What about our future?" And so they sat in silence for a moment before Kene spoke again, determination flashing in his eyes. "We are going to figure this out. Let's stop listening to everyone else and just do what feels right. I love you, Uchechi, and that's all that matters." And with that, they made a decision that would haunt them for years to come. They secretly got married at a registry a few weeks later, with no friends or family in attendance. They could not bear the thought of anyone stopping them. The priest who officiated the ceremony asked if they were sure about this. They nodded, clutching each other's hands as if letting go would be the end of their world. When they finally broke the news to their families, it was like setting fire to dry grass. Uchechi's father stormed out of the house, while Kene's mother burst into tears. Their parents begged, pleaded, and even tried to convince them to divorce. But when Uchechi and Kene dropped the news that they had no intentions of having children and planned to adopt, their parents were left speechless. "Okay, if you are already married, what can we do?" Kene's father finally said, his voice filled with disappointment. "We are all going to pray for you, but don't say we did not warn you." For the first few years of their marriage, Uchechi and Kene proved everyone wrong. Their love was stronger than ever, and they enjoyed every moment of being together. They traveled where they could, laughed endlessly, and supported each other through the highs and lows of life. It seemed like their decision, reckless as it was, had been the right one. But then, one morning, Uchechi woke up feeling nauseous. At first, she thought it was something she ate. But when the sickness continued, she took a pregnancy test. The 2 lines that appeared on the strip left her trembling. She locked herself in the bedroom, her heart racing. When she finally told Kene, tears streamed down her face. "I don't want to think about the consequences," she whispered. "What if we just bring a child into this world to suffer?" Kene held her tightly, stroking her back to calm her down. "Nothing will happen, my love. God would not give us this child if it wasn't part of his plan. We are going to be fine. Trust me." His words gave her some comfort, and as the months passed, they began to embrace the idea of parenthood. They decorated a nursery, attended antenatal classes, and prayed for their unborn child. When Uchechi gave birth to a baby boy, their joy knew no bounds. They named him Chisom, meaning God is with me. But when the doctors suggested testing Chisom genotype, Kene and Uchechi refused. "Sorry, doctor, but we don't need to know," Kene said firmly, pulling Uchechi close. "Our son is fine." And with that, they left the hospital that day, clinging to hope and denial. But as Chisom grew, it became clear that he wasn't like other children. By the time he turned 5, he had already suffered multiple unexplained fevers. Then one fateful day, his teacher called, saying Chisom had collapsed at school. At the hospital, the doctor's expression was grim. "Your son is SS," she said bluntly, holding up the test results. Her voice was raised with frustration. "You knew this could happen, yet you all choose to risk it." Uchechi broke down in tears, her wails echoing through the hospital corridors. Kene stood frozen, unable to process the weight of their choices. Their love, once the strongest thing in their lives, began to crack under the pressure. They argued constantly, not because they stopped loving each other, but because they could not bear the pain of watching their son suffer. Chisom was constantly in and out of the hospital, his frail body unable to endure the simplest of illness. Every fever, every cold, and every bout of pain sent them rushing to the emergency room. The doctors did not hold back their disapproval. "This child is suffering because of your decision," one doctor scolded them. "You knew the risk of getting married as AS genotypes, yet you choose to bring an innocent child into this. Was your love worth this pain?" the doctor asked them. Uchechi sat in silence, tears streaming down her face, while Kene clenched his fist, unable to defend himself. Deep down, they knew the doctor was right. The hospital visit became a routine part of their lives. Uchechi spent sleepless nights beside Chisom, watching him cry in pain. Kene, once her pillar of strength, seemed to retreat into himself, burdened by guilt. Their once vibrant home was now a place of sorrow, and the love that had kept them strong began to crumble under the weight of their mistakes. It wasn't just the physical toll on Chisom that hurt them. It was the emotional pain of watching their once lively boy grow quiet and withdraw. He would sit by the window, watching other children play outside, unable to join them. Uchechi would often find him crying, and it broke her heart every time. Their marriage, which had once been their greatest joy, became strained. The argument started small. Disagreements over Chisom treatment, over money, and over who was to blame. But as time passed, the argument turned into silence. A silence that filled the house like a heavy fog. They tried to hold on, for Chisom, for the love they had once shared, but with each passing day, the cracks in their relationship grew wider. Then came the day they dreaded most. Chisom, their beloved son, was rushed to the hospital after collapsing at school. Despite the doctor's best efforts, His small body could no longer fight. He passed away that night, leaving Uchechi and Kene shattered. The days that followed were a blur of pain and regrets. Uchechi cried endlessly, blaming herself for everything. Kene tried to console her, but he too was drowning in his own guilt. "Why did we do this?" Uchechi whispered one night, her voice barely audible. "We should have listened. We should have stopped this before it got this far." Kene sat beside her, his head in his hands. "I don't know," he replied. "I thought our love could overcome everything. But now I don't even recognize us anymore." They both knew that something had to change. The love they once shared had been so pure and strong, but it wasn't enough to heal the wounds they have inflicted on each other. One evening, after weeks of silence, Uchechi spoke the words that has been weighing on her heart. "Kene, I can't do this anymore. I want children. I want to give life another chance. But I can't bear to bring another child into this world knowing what could happen." Kene's heart broke, but he knew she was right. As much as he loved her, the relationship had become a source of pain rather than joy. He took her hand and said, "If letting you go will give you the life you deserve, then I will do it. I will always love you, Uchechi, but we need to let each other go." The decision to divorce was not easy, but it was the right one. Uchechi moved to Abuja, where she started a new chapter in her life. She eventually found love again and married a man who shared her dreams of building a family. She became a mother to 2 healthy children, finding the happiness she had longed for. Kene too rebuilt his life. He met a kind woman who helped him heal, and they built a peaceful life together. Though he never forgot Uchechi or Chisom, he found solace in the fact that they both had a second chance at happiness. Both Uchechi and Kene dedicated their lives to educating others about the importance of genotype compatibility. They spoke at schools, churches, and community events, using their story to prevent others from making the same mistakes. Though the journey had been filled with pain, they found peace in knowing that their story could save others. They learned that love, while powerful, is not always enough, and sometimes the greatest act of love is letting go. Thank you guys for watching this story to the end. I hope you learned something from this story. I still remain your favorite girl, Onyechi. Please, if you are new to the channel, please like, subscribe, and share to your loved ones. See you all in my next story, and do have a great week. Thank you and bye-bye.